Hello and greetings from Iceland. This video covers thermal scans from the infrared drone camera, and I will be showing you 3 locations this time. And the first location needs some explaining because a highly unusual eruption started there on April 1st, 2025. So I'm starting with a map to do a little recap. This is the famous Reykjanes Peninsula, the youngest part of Iceland, and the first 3 eruptions since 2021 occurred in this area. And the next 9 eruptions took place along the so-called Sundhnúkar row of craters. And let's zoom in to check out the updated lava map with a landscape version number 12 since 2021. And all of these eruptions originated from a magma sill or a magma chamber very close to the Blue Lagoon, and that magma storage was fed from an even deeper source, likely close to the mantle, and the build-up to the April 1st eruption was just like the build-up to prior eruptions. We experienced the usual ground uplift, so the hills around the village burned a few more calories from hikers, while most of the webcams were pointed at the center part of the craters to make sure that we would capture the first moments. But something that can't be explained clogged the system, and all we got was a tiny little eruption for only a few hours, just a little line of fire that stretched literally under the lava berm, which was built there to prevent the lava from flowing into the village, and lucky us that this eruption didn't become larger at this location. And this eruption has actually been called a sort of overspill because the bulk of the magma actually took off from the magma chamber, from where it traveled underground to the northeast through extremely fractured ground. And the magma might just have found a tectonic fracture that it used for this journey. We have plenty of them around, and this volcanic eruption that we had expected for months never found its way to the surface. This new underground magma highway just took off underground to the northeast, and we could literally track it through the seismometers. And it didn't stop until it was only a few hundred meters away from Iceland's busiest highway. So what a day that was. And after this stopped, things remained hectic for days, since the fractures at the northeast end of the fracture swarm were indeed widening. So these are not new features in the landscape. And we got lucky to see this stop there because magma got closer to the city than during any of the events since all this started in 2021. And as soon as the micro-eruption started by the village, I drove over 400 kilometers from the north to film the fires, and when I arrived, what was left was not even usable for a candlelight dinner. So I aimed my cameras at the northeast end of the fracture, where the ground had swallowed most of the magma, and it was literally still shaking under me while I sat in a car doing the first drone tour. And since I had the thermal drone with me, I just had to see if it would detect any anomalies above the fractures that had been widening. And it wasn't the case. The fractures were cold. So I left it like that. And it was then recently that it was brought to my attention that the magma had stopped at a depth of 1.5 kilometers, which has to mean that we came very close to a volcanic eruption there. Close enough for me to get up before dawn during my last trip to the city and lift up the thermal drone again at this same location before the sun started to mess things up. It was cold, somewhere around -6 degrees Celsius, and there were obvious heat signals from the fracture this time. So I did a low pass to check it out better, and I'm actually still trying to figure out if this is something worth pursuing. I had a technical problem with the spot thermometer in the drone. It is a function that allows me to pick a spot and see the exact temperature there, which has turned out to be an extremely useful function, despite the fact that I have to use a third-party software to record the results from the spot thermometer, like I'm doing here. So this drone has its limitations. And since this function was totally frozen when I was filming there, I had only the regular color palette to work with, which tells a part of the story from the contrasts. And from experience, I can say that this is a strong signal, but still, with this frozen ground all around me, I think it's normal to some extent to get results like this. So this was a bit frustrating. And although I cannot call this an urgent issue, this fracture, it's just interesting to see if this new magma highway under there can be detected from the surface due to how extremely broken the land is. And since these results got me warmed up early in the morning and it was still dark outside, I drove to Grindavik village to fly over some of the fractures there. Some experts say that there is magma under the village, others say it's not. And I did actually do a similar thermal scan in 2024 that didn't come up with anything. And the scan now did actually pick up several minor issues, although I'm not sure if they mean anything. But I can, however, say that it is always interesting to look at thermal images. And all videos from such tours, they end up in my collection in case they can at some point in time provide some information. And feel free to come up with ideas and suggestions, like what do you want to see in this format. And I owe it to the channel supporters that helped me to buy this thermal drone to use it more. And it has to be the case. Drones like this don't handle being unused over long periods, and it's necessary to keep the batteries working every now and then. And the last thermal scan this time was actually not on my plan. I happened to stop by in the Krýsuvík region, which has been the epicenter of seismic activity over the last 2 years. I've mentioned this location numerous times because this location could be the beginning of a nasty chapter, since this is the system that runs almost through the capital. And some scientists say that it has already woken up. And it's somehow very easy for me to buy into that. And this time, I was only going to use the car park by the explosion crater Granavatn to take off, to do a little drone circle with my filming drone. I had the tendency to follow the steam, not just for the visuals. It's also to see if the geothermal areas are undergoing some changes. And tours like this, they sometimes provide me with footage to upload to stock agencies. So I decided to stop by at Engjahver Hot Spring. It's one of the places that somehow draws me back again and again, mainly because it never looks the same between tours. And on the way to the car park, I noticed a melt hole on the frozen ice on the explosion crater. And that was unusual. So after I shot this, I sent the thermal drone up to take another look. And that footage is a bit tricky to analyze. There are, of course, obvious contrasts between the ice and the melt hole, and that is normal. There were a few rocks on the ice that popped out, and this looks to me as a bit of warm water was trying to find its way up, likely responsible for those 2 holes. So my question is, of course, is this normal? Is there some old heat source under there trying to tell us something? And lucky me, I found an older thermal scan that I did there in 2023 over this crater. I did that scan out of curiosity alone, so at least I can say now that in 2023 I found no anomalies. And the tourist guides that stop by frequently might be the right people to answer whether this melt hole is normal or not. And I'm only wondering about this because there has been so much unrest in this region. So I'm trying to find out if there are any noticeable changes that might someday become a part of a larger story. At least I can say now that the 2023 thermal scan there wasn't useless after all. It has already justified the disk space, and my next task is to look into this problem with the spot thermometer, or before I return to the Reykjanes Peninsula. That could actually be soon because we expect a volcanic eruption to start there any day now, although it might just as well never start. So this chapter by Grindavik could actually be already over. It is, however, too early to write it off, in my opinion, so I'm still on standby, at least for a few more weeks. And after that, the magma that has accumulated near the Blue Lagoon might just as well solidify and put a plug to this part of the story about the fires on the Reykjanes Peninsula, or at least until they start again at some other location, which is what we expect. And where that might be is likely the biggest question of the year. And with that, I'm sending you best regards from the volcano island, Iceland.